Hey there, this is Kristen Kiefer, and you are listening to episode number 1 of the Well Storied podcast. In this podcast, I will begin each episode by sharing a little of what I've recently learned while working on my manuscripts or from the books I've currently read. Then I'll jump straight into sharing tips and tricks on the day's topic, which may range from creating strong characters and plots, writing, revising, and editing your manuscripts, growing your author platform and readership, and building our very best happy, healthy, and fulfilling writing lives. You can also find corresponding transcripts for each podcast episode on my blog at well-storied.com. Today, let's dive straight into our topic of choice, writerly self-care. This podcast episode is entitled 10 Ways to Care for Yourself as a Writer. Back in the summer of 2016, I wrote a very personal article for the blog. In it, I revealed that I battled depression and shared tips on how to write while living with a mental illness. I never could have imagined how much of an impact that article would have. It's one of the biggest reasons why I want to talk more about writerly self-care on the blog this year. As writers, our work is so mentally and emotionally draining. It's not hard to fall into periods of burnout or extreme doubt, which, being so difficult to overcome, can prolong our writing ruts even further and leave us feeling defeated. This is not a pattern that I want you guys to fall into, which is exactly why I want to share 10 ways you can learn to care for yourself as a writer today. Sound like a plan? Let's dive in. Number 1, call yourself what you are, a writer. If you're writing, you are a writer. It truly is as simple as that. It's not publishing or reaching a certain skill level that validates you as a writer. The fact that you're actively and consistently creating new stories is all the proof you need to take up the title and start proclaiming your writerhood to the world. So what are you waiting for? Go own your status, writer. Number 2, accept that you will always have room to grow. I don't think I'm good enough to be a writer. This phrase most often stems from a place of doubt, but it's also extremely problematic. It implies that there's a certain skill level you need to reach before you can call yourself a writer, which, as we talked about in step number 1, simply isn't true. It also reinforces the idea that writing is pure talent, which is also false. Does a bit of talent help a writer along? Sure, but good storytelling is a craft that can be learned by almost anyone with a love for stories, an open imagination, and the willingness to work hard for what they want. Your skills as a writer and a storyteller may not be where you'd like them to be today, but there is nothing stopping you from getting there, to getting to that place that you want to be. You truly are as good a writer as you work to be. Number 3, give yourself time to write. If you struggle with the first 2 self-care items on our list today, you may also experience writer's guilt. Again, this guilt usually comes from a place of doubt. Why write when you aren't that great, or when you could be spending time with your family or your friends, putting in overtime at work, or doing something else you consider more productive or worthwhile? Writer, you should never feel guilty for doing what you love. If stories are your passion, make the time to write them, guilt-free. Nurturing your passion is what brings you joy in life, and as a bonus, it's also the quickest way to improve your writing skills. So give yourself time to write freely and willingly. I promise you won't regret it. Number 4, create an elevator pitch. Has someone ever asked you what your book's about, only for you to awkwardly stumble through an answer? Me too. One thing we certainly don't want to equate our writing with is embarrassment. That is why it is so important to have an elevator pitch ready to go for your book. I prefer to keep things sweet and simple. In most cases, the person you're talking to isn't expecting a seamless 3-paragraph book blurb, right? They're simply curious about what you write. Need an example? Here is what I usually tell people, first about The Dark Between, and then Lady Legacy, 2 of my current manuscripts in progress. For The Dark Between. Oh, it's just the first book in a fantasy series. It has multiple main characters and lots of intrigue, kind of like Game of Thrones, but for a younger audience. And for Lady Legacy. It's about a woman named Claire. She's a talented healer, but she has crazy ambitions that often get her into trouble. She's like Christina Yang from Grey's Anatomy, right? But in a medieval fantasy world. You don't have to include pop culture references in your own elevator pitch, but I personally find that doing so helps move the conversation forward. It gives the person you're speaking with something to relate your book to. Step number 5. Stop caring about what others think. Friends, there are going to be people in your life who think writing is a waste of time. It's not a profitable career, it's too time-consuming a hobby, it's a silly pursuit. I am sure that you've heard it all. But that doesn't mean that those statements are true. Not in the slightest. There will also be people who doubt you in particular as a writer, or who think the genre of stories that you like to tell are silly, sappy, cheesy, etc. The key is to simply stop caring what those people think. I know it's easier said than done. I'm a recovering people pleaser, so I hear ya. But you have to accept that you're never going to please everyone. And that goes for readers, agents, and critics too. Instead, focus on creating amazing stories for people who share your interests. Because there are people out there who love the same types of stories as you, and they are just waiting to devour everything you have to share. Number 6, set up an automatic backup system. If you've ever lost work due to a crashed computer or a failed save, you know exactly how frustrating and how heartbreaking it can be. But don't spend your days worrying about backing up your work. Instead, switch over to an automatic backup system. My favorite automatic backup system is Dropbox. It's free and setup is crazy simple. All you have to do is head over to Dropbox.com, sign up for an account, and download the free app. The app appears on your computer as a folder. House your project files for your manuscripts inside this folder, and every time you press save, your files will update automatically in your Dropbox cloud. Even if your computer crashes, you'll be able to access all of your saved manuscript files by simply logging in to your Dropbox.com account. Pretty awesome, right? Here's a pro tip. Write your novel in Scrivener, my favorite writing software, and you won't even have to worry about remembering to press save. Your entire project will automatically save itself every time you pause typing for just a few seconds, so you truly can write completely worry-free. Number 7, organize your notes and project files. Nothing is worse than rifling through dozens of project files and notebooks while trying to find that one cool line you wrote while waiting for your triple venti caramel macchiato at Starbucks. It's time to admit that you cannot work this way, which also means it's time to get organized. Even if finding an organization system that works for you turns out to be more time-consuming than you expected. You may need to try out multiple systems and reorganize a lot of work before you find the perfect setup. But getting organized is worth it when you can sit down to write knowing exactly where all of your notes and files are housed. I personally enjoy using Scrivener to get organized, so make sure to check it out. Number 8, find a community. Writing is kind of lonely work, isn't it? It's no wonder that doubts often creep up and disrupt our groove. That is why finding a writing community is so important. If you're lucky enough to have a writing group in your area, I cannot recommend getting involved enough. Being able to meet up with fellow writers in person is an amazing opportunity. But if you don't have a writing group nearby, or if yours wasn't really the right fit for you, don't stress. There are plenty of ways to get involved in the online writing community. In fact, I facilitate 2 different online communities for writers that I would love for you to join. Your Write Dream is a thriving Facebook group where writers can seek encouragement and support in their writing journeys. And #StorySocial is the weekly writers chat that I host on Twitter. You can head over to well-storied.com to learn more about both of these communities and to get involved today. Number 9, take breaks from your writing. The surest way to avoid writing burnout? Don't write so hard and fast that you get burned out. That may seem like pretty obvious advice, right? But so many writers still work themselves into the dirt. I've learned over years of falling into writing ruts, my most recent lasting over 2 months, that you can't just take a break when you have no other choice. You have to take preemptive breaks too. Simply taking a day each week or a few days each month to rest and recharge is huge. You don't even have to stop working altogether, though that's perfectly okay too. Instead, simply have a little writing-related fun on your break days. You can create a Pinterest storyboard for one of your manuscripts, write some pretty bad poetry, at least in my case, read up on several of your favorite research topics, or play around with a new story idea. And finally, number 10, write what you love. The key to caring for yourself as a writer truly lies in writing what you love, in feeding your passion and giving your love for storytelling the room to grow and thrive. So many writers spend their days worrying about how they'll find an agent, or how marketable their story will be, or whether or not readers will enjoy it. And while those things are kind of important, they also shouldn't be your main concern. After all, if you aren't writing something you love, why are you writing in the first place? If you're passionate about a story, I promise you there will be readers who will love it too. No matter how weird, how sappy, how literary or gory or so on that you make it. You are not alone in what you love. So don't settle for writing anything less than what makes you happy. That is the key to caring for yourself as a writer. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Well Storied podcast. To catch the transcript of this episode, make sure to head over to well-storied.com. And I'll see you next time. Bye!